And when I was asked by Professor Alam to talk about the Arab role, I mean the university's roles in the Arab world, being the president of the Association of the Private Arab University, it's really changing a lot. You won't believe it. So I want to read the history. I think this one, is it? Yeah. So this is my content. So I'll talk about the higher education in the Arab world as a whole, and then the two oldest universities in the world, and how did we move from that to oldest university. Of course, the Arab been Islamized in the 7th century, and then the first two institutions were in the 9th centuries. So we have Al-Qarawiyyin University started in 859, which is about 14 or 13 centuries, yes, ago, and it's founded by a woman, Fatima al-Fihri. And then we have Al-Azhar University because of course, the Fatimiyin, they were ruling in Morocco, and they started the first university. Then they moved to Egypt and started also the first university, Cairo, and it started by a commander called Jawhar. The commander, he wanted a university, he wanted science, so he did this. But the unfortunate or the sad things, we stayed there. We have to the best, and these two universities are still there, and they are issuing degrees, and for about 8 or 9 centuries, nothing increased, till probably the 1940s. We've only 10 universities in the whole Arab world, and then in the 70s, when Middle East countries start getting their independence, then we have about 30 universities. Oil prices went up. We reached 140 universities in the Arab world, 260 by 2007, and I'm sorry, there is no another, there should be one. By 2012, we have 738 universities in the Arab world. 738 from only 10 universities 60 years ago. So, and the 3/7, which is 312 universities, are in the GCC countries with a population of less than 20 million. They have 300 plus universities. Of course, they are the largest probably number of international campuses, branches in the university. For example, the United Arab Emirates have 72 universities. There's about 30 of them are international campus. And you have the experience of Qatar, which has about 8 international campuses in the Qatar foundations. The Bahrain experience is slightly different, because Bahrain is not that rich, relatively. I'm talking about just relatively. So most of the universities are founded in Bahrain with a collaboration or cooperation with one or two international universities. For example, when we started the university, we had a collaboration with the Brunel University in London. And we now run Brunel PhD programs, and we have graduated about 13 students, PhD, from all the GCC. And we have a collaboration with George Washington University. We run their master programs. And we run our own programs, of course. And we've been doing okay. But what I wanted to make sure, or to talk about, the area is changing. I mean, 700 plus universities, there have to be something to happen, because, and if we don't convert these universities, or if they don't convert the whole area to a knowledge-based economy, then we're going to have problem, because we all believe that we have oil and we have gas, but sometimes it's going to disappear. It will go. So we believe that only investing in the brains of our kids are the only lasting investment. And that's what I think, that the Arab should go, because we have also a big problem, I think our friend from BBC before talked about the problem of illiteracy, because he's, so we have very big illiteracy in the Arab world, I think I'll go to the next one. That's me, by the way, with one of the partners. Yeah, we have the problem of illiteracy. When you go and see the numbers of people who cannot read and write in the Arab world, according to the UNESCO, we have 58.36 million in the age of 15 and above who could not read and write in the Arab world. Yani something like 29%. So there is a problem, and many of these, of course, are female. So we have also the gender problem. It's not only the illiteracy. So, and most of them, of course, Egypt, Sudan, Morocco, and Yemen. I mean, the GCC countries are less illiteracy, but still, we always have the idea of unless we change, there is going to be not an Arab Spring. I believe there is going to be an Arab Intifada, I believe, and I've said to that. I said to that last week. There was a conference in Saudi Arabia, Al-Qimba Al-Iqtisadiyya, and the Saudi TV was interviewing me, and I said, well, Arab Spring is nothing compared what's going to come to the Arab region, because there is a feeling of so many unemployed poor Arabs, looking at very rich countries who have oils and gas and employing foreigners from the other side, because cheap labor, So, and this is the real problem in the Arab world, is one day going to come where the poor Arabs going to invade the rich Arabs, and there is a problem. The only solution to this is education, and it's a knowledge-based education where we should spread it all around the Arab world, So educational reforms took over in all the area, because we have 700 plus universities, so we have to change, But the unfortunate things, the change, it's more of a tight change. The more of regulation and centralization, and we want to have the same, which is not what we need if we wanted our education, or if we want our societies to live in the knowledge economy. We need to deregulate things. We need to decentralize many things. We need to give the universities and institutions of higher education and institutions of research more freedom, more autonomy within, of course, what everybody called today the quality assurance, the quality within standards, within. But what unfortunately is going, for example, this is an example of Bahrain, of course. We have the highest committee chaired by the Deputy Prime Minister. It's called the Reform Committee, the Education Reform Committee. We have a Quality Assurance Committee. Authority started 5 years ago with a partnership with the Australian Quality Assurance. We have now just started the National Qualification Framework, which is, I think it's very important, and it should happen in every country if we want to move towards the knowledge economy, because we want to measure the people not only those who went to a formal institution. What about those who know so many things without going to formal institutions? This will be the solution. Of course, this cannot work unless other bodies support it. For example, if you have quality assurance authority with results, and the Ministry of Higher Education or the Ministry of Education do not care about it, other institutions are not bothered because it's only, there's no punishment, it's only a result to be declared. If these things do not work together, then we do have a problem, So, of course, I've chosen this as an example, but all the Arabs going towards the same thing. Every country is trying to establish and trying to have quality assurance, because in the last 10 years, the quality assurance, wherever you go, you hear them talking about it. And I hope it will be, of course, successful, So we go then the paradigm of shift in education. So these are the elements, starting with, of course, that it's a student-centered rather than schooling or teaching. It's not schooling, no. It's the learning more important than the teaching. We have, of course, to varied reinforcing methods of teaching. Different method of teaching is not only one method of teaching where at the end you take an exam and the results come. No, should be more than that. Of course, experiential learning is very important. You learn while you are working, and you work while you are learning, and rather than, of course, there have to be more emphasis on interdisciplinary work. There shouldn't be very clear, corridors or very clear separation between the different disciplines. Practice and effective communication as a teamwork and as the leaderships. Of course, simulation of creativity is very important. Group over individual learnings rather than just single learning. Testing for practical skills and application. These are the most important element of the paradigm in the education system. Major challenges to the education system in the Arab world. As I talked, about the regulation, I believe that within the certain framework, deregulation is the answer, and decentralization is the answer. So there should be deregulation and decentralization. We do not want to put a jacket in if that every institution look the same, their courses the same, their curriculum the same. That does not help, the economy-based or the knowledge-based economy. Lack of diversification of educational opportunities, not linked at best, marginally linked to viable and sustainable careers in knowledge economy. We must have that also. We should have cross-country redundancy. For example, we are small countries, we cannot every one country repeat the same thing. If we have a center of excellence in leadership in Bahrain, tomorrow Qatar will have center of leadership, and day after tomorrow Dubai. If we have a dry dock in Bahrain, Dubai the second day will make a bigger dry dock. Then the one in Bahrain doesn't work because the Dubai one is larger and deeper, and these things, and only in the same view. So we need to also cross countries. There's 22 Arab countries, and since 60 years ago, we dream of a common things, but unfortunately there isn't. And that's why Subhi, I think before, or he said, if somebody do something, the other Arab doesn't know about it, not like what happened here. we think this is a necessary. We speak the same language, we have the same understanding and the same, and we think we have one future at the end, you know. So we have to really divide things. If a center of excellence is here, there shouldn't be another one here. There should be a third one in the others, and so on, you know. Of course, gender, I talk about gender inequality. It's a very, very, very important, you know. In some countries, you know, although they claim that women are put in such a great by our religion and by our, you know, and it's only a talk, you know, because they cannot do anything, you know. That's one of the reasons of starting the private university in Bahrain, as I said at the beginning, 20 years ago, because two of my Saudi friends wanted their daughter to study. One, he wanted her to study in Oregon, and the other wanted to study there. The reason why, because in Saudi Arabia, about 20 or 30 years ago, a woman can only study medicine or education. She cannot study business or free arts or whatever it is, you know. So I think these things have to change, because we have 50-something% are female, you know. And unless they take their part, then we are like somebody with a broken wing, you know, because there are two wings, you know, and we have to have them both okay if we want to fly, you know. Lack of culture of quality, of course. This is a very important also. Culture of quality, the lack, you know, still, it's whose university, what color is it, and how is the buildings, how is this, rather than what quality of education, what quality of research. So this lack of quality caused us problem, you know, but we have to look at and 6, lack of integration of lifelong learning. We as Muslims, you know, have one of the very famous talk by the Prophet Muhammad, that اطلبوا العلم من المهدي إلى اللحد. And it's very well documented, you know, that education is from cradle to grave, you know. But what our university does, they teach us things, you know. They don't teach us how to learn all the time, you know. Of course, from school, you know, we want to be learners of all time, you know. And this is a very important, you know, the lack of long learning, lifelong learning, you know. This must happen, and this, with the qualification of framework, could work together, because, you know, somebody who did not have the chance of going to a university, but is learning by a different means, we should encourage him, because that's the life learning, you know. And that's how do we encourage him? We put him at certain level of the framework based on his knowledge, rather than the knowledge he studied them at a certain college or universities, you know. That's why I said it's formal or informal learning should be measured, you know. Of course, I will conclude by that the answer is sustainable development, you know. And unless we really work towards sustainable development, we're going to waste 3 or 4 decades. We're going to spend the money of the oil and the money of the gas and the money of whatever is happening. And then after 4 or 5 decades, we will look at our universities as just buildings, rather than, you know, a generating of real life. And I always give an example of few countries, you know. When I started thinking about the private university in Bahrain, and there was a great opposition, because The feeling was the more you teach people, the more unemployment. And I had to convince people it's the opposite. The more opportunities of education is less unemployed people. And I went to the highest authority there, and they've asked me, you've been writing this in the newspaper, what do you mean? And I said, well, I'll give you an example, The number of populations are the same, If you open universities and if you open institutions, the rate of birth will be lower. He said to me, why? I said, well, they're studying, they're busy, So, and I gave them an example of England in 1974. I think 74, yeah, when I was doing my PhD. And we had a 5 days work, That the year after, it's the first time the English population grew, because there's 3 days off, So that's one. The second thing I said, well, females and males are there. If a female doesn't have an opportunity to go to university and study, what she's going to do? I said, well, two ways. Either she's going to, destroy her mother and going to cry at her mother and going to kill and going this, or she's going to the wrong way. There's no alternative. Shopping. Well, shopping if you work and you have money, but you're uneducated, So you do another thing, For the men, it's slightly better. Either you do the same or you go and burn in the streets, because you have nothing to do. So I said, but he said, still, what about the unemployment rate? I said, well, if you open universities for them, and some of them are private universities, they're going to spend another 4 years or 5 years studying rather than demanding jobs. So 4 years taken from every individual from the market needs, in education, paid by, outsiders, the rate of employment should be dropped, less. Instead of working for 40 years, now they work for 36 years. So calculated. I said to him, also I have another reason. If you study and you get a degree, you will be you can get married. Okay? If you get married, you become little coward. He said, what? I said, yeah, and we have a say by Imam Ali that الزواج مجبنة. I said, what's this? I said, yeah, you get married, so now you are looking after your wife. You're scared somebody will touch her. You're scared they won't promote her. So you are coward, you don't fight, And he said, well, injab majbana akbar. And if you bring children, you become a coward, double coward. I said, how is that? I said, yeah, you have kids. You're thinking which schools you're going to take them to. So you become really, and so the people tell me, and what's that? I said, this means university campuses will be so coward and safe, no revolution, no uprising, because everybody is busy, collecting money, learning things. When you don't have universities, you have all what's happened in the Arab Spring, because these people are not educated, a lot of them. They have no job to do. They're not looking for a private school. So what do? They have to go to the streets, And really, if you look at all these consequences together, is the only solution to the Arab world is to go towards the sustainable development and towards, of course, the knowledge economy, because this is the only sustainable things, And I tried to convince, of course, my audience at that time, and it was a part of the licensing for the university, and that's why they said, make so many universities so we'll have quite society. Everybody is busy learning, teaching, and so you have no time to have more kids. And so we do not have to think about so many future generation coming. So my conclusion, of course, that strengthening, of course, autonomy of universities is one of my top priorities. Because the problem, and we have a problem, and I want to share it with you because it's very important. Somebody talk about public and private. I hate to talk about public and private in this aspect. I start telling them, let's talk about quality assurance and results and standards. I don't care where the money comes from. But the problem comes when a private institution works and succeed. Who put the regulation? Is the public sector. And that public sector has been really failing for the last 1300 centuries. So how could a very old-fashioned public sector regulate a private, enterprises or entrepreneurs or what? There is a problem here, and that's why I think, at least personally, that's what's my conclusion at one time. A mixed universities are the best. I gave a lecture in Riyadh, and I've translated mixed to al-Jami'a al-Mukhtalata. If those who knows Arabic, and they said, "What? You don't talk in Riyadh about Jami'a al-Mukhtalata?" I said, "No, it's mixed in funding rather than, al-Mukhtalata rather than females and males." I think the solution is the mixed universities where private universities should be helped by public, support them and then regulate them. If you don't support them and if you don't help them, why the hell should you regulate them? And that's the belief, from my experience, and I think it's not only my experience, the experience of so many in the Arab world, because we still thinking, the Arabs generally hate success, individual success or instrument success. No, they just want the status quo goes and, the ship do not rock. And this is a problem, so maybe with the solution of the mixed universities and mixed centers of research and things, we can solve this problem, So I think more autonomy for universities, of course, flexibility is necessary. That's why I said deregulation in a way, and decentralization is a very important. Then I put my results as a scale. If these things happen, we'll go up. If it doesn't happen, we'll go down, So I think the Arab government in the sphere of higher education ought to work together on the regional level to ensure an absence of inefficient duplication of programs, enabling each country to establish earmarked specialized centers of higher education. Governmental education regulatory body would be well advised to harmonize and rationalize educational policy, but, with a big but, with a view to provide private universities an environment in which these universities would enjoy the freedom to innovate, design programs in line with the knowledge-based economy. Thank you very much, and I'm ready for your questions.